too. So
You ain't got time for all that.
yeah.
All right, let's kick it off. So, still going with the theme of programming, except we're getting a little more nerdy now. I would say we're getting more into like the physiological parts of programming. And I personally get really excited about this because I think when you really do start to understand it well, it makes you a much smarter programmer. And then you can also look at workouts. And even if you're following a program and you have specific needs and you want to get creative and add things, it just gives you those tools to do it. So we're going to start off with the adaptation for fitness, that first article. That one's fairly simple, but pretty interesting. And then we'll get into the aerobic part and like the VO2 part of things. So, adaptation for fitness. You didn't get a chance to read it. Basically, it's about an exercise scientist that wanted to figure out how how do we get fitter and why are we not as fit as like we could be basically. Um, and comes up with the phrase basically that doesn't kill you makes you strong. And in that phrase, that's purely saying if you go do a workout and you don't stress your body out and the workout's not hard enough, you're not going to get there, right? You don't really set off the alarm stage and your brain doesn't go, okay, we need to build back stronger in case this happens again. Because like basically from like a very caveman point of view, when we work out, our brain's not really sure what's going on. All it knows is something's happening and our body's being stressed out. So when we stop, our brain just goes, so we don't die next time. Let's go ahead and get a little fitter, whether that's heavy load or getting more of an aerobic system, cardio system, whatever that's going to be. Because you go back a few hundred years, maybe we were fighting another tribe, or maybe we were getting chased by a wild man. Like that's the way our brain is perceiving things. So with that being said, did you guys have any thoughts or statements that you want to chime in before I get into what I have?
I mean, it was basically just at the cellular level. It's like just getting the cells out of homeostasis that creates the adaptation. Like, if you're just going to constantly hit that homeostasis, you're not going to improve. So you have to like put it in overdrive or, get it out of homeostasis to create
I
that.
think a good way to put it is you have to make yourself uncomfortable on a daily basis in the gym. Like even if you're going to the gym and you're exercising, and not that there's anything wrong with this, I'll kind of address this in a second, but you're just going through the motions and you're never really not having a great time, you'll pretty much just baseline your fitness. Now, that may be someone's intent. Maybe they just want to go to the gym, they want to just stay where they're at, they don't want to, decay with age, and they want to stay at a fitness level even though they're getting older. There's nothing wrong with that. So it goes back to like someone's why, but we have to be uncomfortable every day, and it doesn't matter if it's load, it doesn't matter if it's so it's a really good example of in CrossFit's methodology too, the high intensity piece, right? That high intensity piece is basically saying exactly that. Like we have to push hard enough to get the stressor on our body to then have the adaptation get better. So it's a really good example, a more like nerdy example of why we need to be having high intensity, and that's speed or load, and then also like balancing that threshold training, with that, like trying to get ourselves to the peak that we can move without things deteriorating mechanically. He's got a couple stages here that I want to go through.
Oh, Nathan,
Go
before you
ahead,
get
Justin.
to the stages, I was kind of thinking about this article and it made me consider like the difference between like bodybuilding and CrossFitters. And I was wondering if like I feel like whenever we're doing, at least for me, whenever I'm doing like a Metcon, I'm hitting that uncomfortable zone every single time I do a Metcon. It's just like I don't allow myself not to do that in a Metcon. But when I'm doing some bodybuilding accessory work, like I feel like I'm not doing that, and I'm wondering like what do I need to have a high heart rate? Like when you're bodybuilding, for example, what can get you to that adaptation stage or
You know what I
alarm?
think is a great example? You ever been bench pressing with a buddy and they're like, you're gonna do 10 reps, and you're like, "Oof, I don't know." And you get to 7 and you start to fail, and 8 starts to break down, and they maybe have some fingers on the bar, and you're at this point where, like, if they don't help you on the next rep, you're probably gonna fail the rep. That would be a good example of, like, in a bodybuilding state being there. So, like, finding loads that if you're supposed to hit 8 to 10 reps, like, you're squeaking out the last 1 or 2, and they are hard and they're not fun anymore type reps, versus, like, if you just have 10 bicep curls and you crank your 10 and put them down, and you were just never able to have to even stop your conversation, like, that would be like the difference in state, I would say. So you're trying to find loads that are, those last few are just, you don't want to do that. You want to rack the bar, you want to get it off you, because this is not fun any longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so just going to failure basically. But when we're doing
I
this
don't
goes
want to say failure, but it's close to it, because you don't have to just keep failing all the time.
I forgot what it's called when you have like 2 in the tank, whatever that acronym is, or something like that's what I
Yeah, I know what you
usually
mean. Like, that would
um
be, I think for bodybuilding, that would be a pretty good rule. Like, if you had 1 or 2 left for most of your sets, that would be good. And then, like, the last set, you kind of like finish it off. I
okay.
think that'd be a really good zone.
So would this apply for the accessory work then that I
So
should be doing?
with like the accessory work conversation, I think it depends on, like, going back to your why. So if I'm doing accessory work to put on size, get bigger, and just get stronger, then yes. If I'm doing accessory work, like, let's say I'm going to use a Bulgarian split squat as an example. Let's say I'm doing Bulgarian split squats, and my intent is to PR my back squat, in the near future at some point in time. I'm going to load those up. Like, I'm going to make those very unenjoyable, not going to like them. I'm going to be that 2 rep away in the tank, last set, almost failing type spot. If I'm doing Bulgarian split squats to mobilize my hips and to get my hip flexors, like, stretched out, and to get on that back leg, then I'm not going to do that. I'm going to maybe go to a tempo. It's going to be a lighter load. I'm going to pause. I'm going to be very, very in control, because I'm focusing on, like, the range of motion and the movement in the joint. So I think it really goes back to, like, why are you doing each accessory piece? And then figuring out from there, how am I going to actually approach this? And, skill would be another good example. Like, you're never going to failure. You're always working under 0 to very, very light speed, so you can focus on the movement patterns. So I think it's why you're doing each. That's a good question. Um, the stages, I kind of want to touch on those, because I think it gets really interesting when we start to get into, like, overtraining too. So the alarm stage, pretty simple. That's the workout, right? That's when we're in the gym, we do the workout, we're breathing heavy. I want to stop. Load's heavy. I want to put it down. And we're doing a workout that's very uncomfortable. Right? That's going to initiate and get going the resistance stage. Which the resistance stage, think R, is recovery, right? In the recovery is where we actually get fitter. We don't get fitter inside the gym doing our workouts. So when we go home and we're done working out and we focus on our nutrition, on our hydration, on our sleep quality, I would say those are the big ones without doing anything illegal. That's where we're going to adapt, grow, get stronger, get better cardiovascular endurance, create more bronchioles in the lungs, things like that. So at the end of the day, even though I think it's amongst just especially general population, it's the most overlooked thing. That recovery and things we're doing outside is probably even more, not probably, is more important than what we've just done in the gym. The last one he talks about is the exhaustion. That's on the extreme level, he was like, you could die. Like, he's not wrong, you could die. We're probably not going to die. We're just going to be very sore for several days. We're going to feel like shit. We're going to have low energy, those overtraining type things. I think this is a very interesting topic, because I think even someone like me, that I've been doing CrossFit over 13 years now, And on my 13th year, I'm probably some of the least fit I've ever been. It's not because I'm not going to the gym and getting workouts in. It's because of the things that are happening outside the gym. Not enough food, not enough hydration. The sleep's good, but sleep's another really, really common one. So even if everything's going right inside the gym and I'm doing a class a day, I'm not doing any accessory work, my volume is not very high at all. I'm overtraining, I think. And I think a lot of people end up overtraining, but they don't think about that they're overtraining because maybe they're just taking class because those recovery things and that resistance stage aren't happening. So it just goes to show how important that stuff's been. Does that make sense? I think it took me a very long time to realize that you can overtrain it without actually doing that much. And that's why you see, high level athletes, then like, oh, they're doing 4 hours a day, but they're also super tuned into the other things versus, someone that comes to class, they do one workout, they don't drink water, they have beer at night, they eat a bad dinner, they go to bed late, they wake up early, they're just continuing to decay their fitness because of that, even though they're not even doing a lot. Questions on that or statements?
I just thought the resistance, like what I understood from the resistance phase was more like kind of, so they say adaptation phase as well. Kind of like,
So imagine, I'm gonna not do a fitness scenario. Imagine a different scenario. Imagine you and Elise have to do a boxing match, right? And you guys have match number 1, and you guys fight, and whatever the outcome is, the outcome is. And then you go home, and in 6 months you have Elise versus Diana number 2. Your resistance phase is going to be everything you need to be doing to not get beat up in the second fight. Right?
okay.
Does that make sense? So,
I guess
so
when you said recovery, I felt I was actually thinking of sleeping and,
which is a part of it, but what's happening when that's going down is your cells are rebuilding. You're putting more muscle mass on. It's your brain. It's your brain saying, okay, we need to get better because this could happen again. And when it happens again, we don't want to die or we don't want to lose.
Yeah.
So your brain is resisting that bad thing that's going to happen by building defenses basically against it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like an odd word. That's why I would rather use the term recovery because for us, it's easier to say workout happens, recovery happens. And that's workout is the alarm. Resistance is the recovery.
Okay.
The little chart they had, and it had the where the work capacity was over time, and then it had like a little super compensation bubble. That's a really cool one to me, and for all of us that like to compete and get going on stuff like that. Basically, to sum that up, you train. If you can recover at a fast rate, you'll get those little bubbles. And then every time you get those little bubbles where you have this like day of, superhuman strength for Nate, and it's not my true baseline, but it's like that day that I hit my snatch PR, and I'm like, I don't know how I did that. And like we've all had those occasionally, and they're not as common as we maybe like unless you're a beginner. Every time we can hit that, that's like taking your average of where your baseline is and teetering it up just a little bit. So it's like if I have a B in class, when I get the A on the test, that's my super compensation day. And now my B moved to a B plus. So it's like we want to do that as much as possible because every time we do that, it's going to just raise our baseline of fitness higher and higher. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I also really like this little chart because when you look at it and you go, okay, I'm going to have, my Monday, and Monday I usually feel good because I probably trained Saturday morning. So I had like a 36-hour rest and recovery period happen and I feel good on Monday. And then Tuesday, I'm okay, but it's not great. And then Wednesday, really not great. And then we take some time off and we get back to that top of the week, right? And like usually Friday, Saturday are like okay days because we have Thursday off, and then Monday we feel good again. That's like your wave. So it's like when I see, you know, a benchmark girl and it's programmed on Wednesday and we've already hammered 2 days. When people PR, that's amazing because they are doing that under fatigue. They're not primed and recovered like they would be going into a competition for a benchmark, or it could be a 1 rep max. So I think looking at this from just a day-to-day athlete, you know, that wants to drive results, you have to remember that most of the time that you're training, you are in a fatigue state, even if you don't feel terrible. The only reason I bring that up is just for like the psychology of training and having bad training days, and you know, they can hit you pretty hard and put you in a pretty bad mood when those happen. So just don't let them dictate how your fitness is going all the time, right, Deanna?
Yes.
Yeah, I only see you laughing. That's why I call you out. Questions on like any of that stuff?
I want to give a scenario because I think it has to do with overtraining. And what I'm curious on the overtraining side is what are some indicators that you can see in yourself for other people? They'll be like, all right, let's take the foot off the gas a little bit. So like I feel like on Thursday of last week, I hit my overtraining wall. Like Jose was coaching, we were doing deadlifts, 1 rep max that whole week, and Thursday was the last day of the 1 rep maxing. And I think I failed like 10 pounds under like my PR. And then like after that, I was like, I'm done. I'm
Like the
done.
house on fire. Fuck this.
Yeah. And then so like, all right, whatever, I'll make up for it. Come in on Friday, and I did not want to go to the gym at all. And I love Fridays because I usually have like a big day of accessory, skill, sauna, all the whole thing. And just crushed on a Friday. I came in, it was like the worst Metcon I've ever done. I was just like got through the damn workout, and it was like I shouldn't even came in basically. And then the whole weekend, I took off Saturday, I took off Sunday, and I came in today, or I took off Monday and I came in today, and I was like, God, I don't have. I mean, I did the Metcon good. I was like pretty much middle of
But you
where I
didn't
was.
have your same like juice.
Didn't have it. But then 2 weeks ago, before last week's 1 rep max, I had like the best week of Metcons. I had like super high energy. It's like I was at the top of the wave. And then last week, with all the 1 rep maxes, I came down, and I'm still like on a downturn or something.
You're on the bottom of the wave. I think in general, especially, you know, for people like us that are training, you know, all the way through a year, like it's a part of our lives. You're naturally going to go through those peaks and valleys. So whether you're, I don't want to say that you're necessarily like overtraining, because I do think that's like a natural thing that happens. But I will say, sign number one for me is usually I don't want to be there and I don't want to work out. And it can be like my favorite movements, and I'm like, I don't care. I just don't want to do this. I also think I get a little irritable. Like I get more annoyed when people talk about their workouts and I'm just like shorter, things like that. Like my mood is like a little bitchy. Recovery wise, for me, like the way my body feels, I don't know that it's always like the perfect indicator for me personally, because like I don't do a bunch of accessory work, so I can do a pull up WOD and I'll be sore as shit. And it's not because I'm like overtrained, it's just because I haven't hit that stimulus in a long time. So I think also just like asking yourself, like, what have you been doing? Have you had recent exposures to these movements? And if you have and you're just like wrecked, then that might be a sign. But if it's like you feel wrecked, but it's something you haven't done, then I don't think you can put a whole lot of credit in there. But I like to watch the move usually a lot. That's a big one for me.
Like outside factors too, like are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Do you have
Yeah.
stress? Like all of that has a lot to do. And like for me, for instance, when Thursday comes, like I'm already beat from the week. Like
I'm
Thursday,
smoked on Thursday.
I am just I don't do anything. Like I gave up on working out on Thursdays, like Metcons, because I know that it's gonna be total trash, and then I'm gonna get mad at myself for being total trash. So I just
And-
don't do anything, and I come back on it on Friday.
And also looking at, you know, when you go back to your level 1 and Glassman's talking about the fall off, it's 3 days, and the 4th day he found there was a big fall off in performance. And not saying like don't train your 4th day, because it ultimately it's going to come down to what your schedule is and when are you able to train. So you can't have that as your holy grail. But from his findings, Thursdays, if you went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, are typically not going to be a great day. Not saying they have to be a bad day, but
like, don't
think-
stress it out. Don't stress.
yeah, I think at that
not
point you
the
are
best
fatigued
day.
from the
Like,
week.
just realize that maybe that day it's gonna be you know.
And
Well, like
and
with
it's-
what you were saying, like I actually had the same kind of intuition. I was like, oh man, that 4th day, Thursday comes around. It's like not a good
It's a
day for
lot.
me in Metcon. I'm like, maybe that's gonna be like I'll do some skill and then do some zone 2 cardio and just get in the gym, do some movement. I it's for me the
do some
struggle
movement
is
without
I
the
get off my
without a
schedule,
heavy.
then things all fall apart.
Do some movement without that like really heavy physical demand.
Yeah.
You know, like skill work or like that cardio you're talking about would be great, and that cardio will serve, you know, as a recovery factor and get some blood flow as well. You do have to consider too. It was 1 rep max week last week, so neurologically you're fried. So like even skill work getting the Thursday on a week like that might not go well because your brain's like, dude, stop. Like I'm
Yeah.
tired of this. And that's probably a big factor of like why that even drifted into the weekends as well. Let yourself, I don't know what you guys have this week, but let yourself just like move and lift light for a couple days and kind of let yourself have that recovery. Like focus on maybe, you know, a change up of what you've been doing, because last week just sounds like it was so heavy packed as well. But to Deanna's point, that kind of brings me to the last thing I had written down. And this was just my own notes. Looking at like the tiers of recovery, I think we know this, but it's always just good to, you know, retouch on and a good thing to relay to people. I would say tier 1 is your nutrition. And nutrition, I mean like what's going in your body or what's not going in your body. It doesn't necessarily mean good food versus bad food. It can be all great food, but not enough food, and now you still have a problem. Your hydration, that's going to be a huge one. The way your muscles function and just everything, our whole body. If you're dehydrated, nothing is optimal. And then with your sleep, a lot of people just focus on like hours, and it's not just hours.
Quality
is going to be a huge factor there as well. There's some good resources that we'll touch on with sleep when we get into nutrition, because I think they go hand in hand, that have some good tips for it. So those things are going to be huge. And then I would say tier 2 of recovery, if tier 1 isn't happening, then tier 2 is not going to be like that impactful. Your blood flow, like that real slow zone 2 cardio can be great, but if you're not eating good and you're not sleeping, not going to do you any good. It's probably going to do you worse. Like mobilization, getting body work done, and I just umbrellaed that over all sorts of different things, you know, having a massage, rolling, stuff like that, like whatever you want to look at, putting on boots. So if tier 1's not happening with people and you see that they're focusing a lot on those other things, see what they're doing in that first tier, because that's going to be the bread and butter. It'd be like doing bicep curls to try to get your first pull up and never working on your lats. Like we know what's going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. Any questions or statements about that? All right. Now we're going to get super nerdy. The aerobic article. So it put a big emphasis on your cardiovascular stamina and like endurance, but also the VO2 max, and like it questioned how do we raise the VO2 max? I have a big overarching takeaway from this article that isn't said, but I want to see like what you guys' takeaways are before I say what I want to say. What did you guys take from it? Even if it's just like a single point, doesn't have to be a huge theme.
So I didn't get.
Oh, go ahead, Justin.
So I didn't get to this
Justin
article.
D, at least.
I read the first one. I didn't get to the second one, so no gold star for me. But I did watch the Rhonda Patrick talk that she had at CrossFit headquarters or whatever, like a week or two ago, or maybe a couple weeks ago. And she was talking about a type of protocol that's like the Denmark something or another. It's like 4 minutes on, 3 minutes off, 4 minutes on, 3 minutes off, 4 minutes on. So it's 4 sessions of 4 minutes. And that was something that I've heard that helps with the VO2 max. But I forgot what the RPE that you should be attaining or hitting on that though is.
I would say
That
it has to be relatively pretty high.
they did it in the CrossFit Health. Actually, they came with the papers that they follow people doing 2 different protocols, and the one that increased the most was that, like, it was the same amount of time. Like, you go on high intensity, and then you have the same amount of time to recover. Then again, moderate high intensity, then the same amount of recover, the moderate high. So like, 4 rounds, but it was 4 times that. That was the best protocol to improve VO2 max
I
so
have
far.
two. I have 2 thoughts on that. First thought, Justin, can you send that to us? Because I do want. I haven't seen it, and I do want to watch it, and we can maybe discuss more next week. And then my second thought is going to go with my overarching theme. I don't want to forget it. Dee, what were you going to say? And then we'll go over these.
That it basically goes back to the other article that you really have to stress your body to get that, to get your true VO2 max, because you can't just like, run
Yeah,
a
just
couple-
go on a light jog and expect it.
right, and expect like the first time you do it, yeah, you'll get fitter, but the more you do it, you won't, because it's the same, you're doing like the same 70%, let's say, instead of actually going hard. And this brings up the intervals, which goes back to what Justin said. So
Yeah, you'll get fitter if you're doing it forever. You'll get fitter, but you'll get fitter in a different way than
Correct.
that way.
right.
So actually, what you say, they also came with the articles that back up in CrossFit Health, that they were saying level 2 doesn't really help for increasing the VO2 max. To see how doctors say, hey, just go in there and just go for a walk, start like, well, that doesn't really work for, because VO2 max, it's a representation of how
Your
much
peak.
how much oxygen you consume, and the only thing that consumes oxygen, it's the mitochondria. So it's an equivalent of how many mitochondria you have in your body. As if you have more, then you can produce, it's equal to more lifetime, more longevity. So it was like, if you increase your VO2 max, you will have more years of living in that goal, not in the performance on sport, but in longevity. So
So it's correlated to overall health as well.
yeah. So and if you have better mitochondria, you will process better sugars, you will process better everything, not producing lipids, like everything. So it's like, that's why more longevity. So they were saying that the prescription of, hey, just go for a walk, where a walk is not stressing for you, that's not going to increase your VO2 max. But if it's like a person that doesn't do anything, and that walk is
Then it
enough
is
for
stressing.
stressing, yeah, that's actually going to help. So it will actually, what helps is something that gets your intensity. At the end, they were saying that mixing cardiovascular with weights, it's the best protocol, and then do it in these intervals, which remind me that now that you say intervals, they reminded me that in the CrossFit level 1, how they said when they introduced the Tabata, that the Tabata was actually one of the,
Extremely effective.
yeah.
Your point's going to go along with my overarching umbrella point, and I'm glad you brought up the point too, that walking could be very intense, right? It could be someone that hasn't got off their couch in years, and then walking across the house makes them out of breath, like I did a sprint. it goes to show intensity is relative. It doesn't matter where you are. Intensity could be found even if it's not going to be intense to any of us. I lost my second point. That'll come. Elise, what were you going to say?
I mean, no, everyone else just basically hit the nail on the head already. You know, I've actually done VO2 testing when I was in school. Like I did exercise physiology and, you know, put the mask on, ran on the treadmill, tested my VO2 max and stuff. And, you know, actually at that time, rowers had the best VO2 max out of everybody. Just a little tidbit. But,
Pat yourself on the back.
well, I mean, it wasn't me. So, they were just saying like Olympic rowers were like the best, but, it's interesting how CrossFit is that, is just making such an impact and such a change. Like we're questioning all the rituals now, you know, like now how ice shouldn't be used on acute injuries, you know? So it's like, it's interesting how CrossFit's coming in and saying, okay, no, the high intensity for a short period of time, not for 30 minutes, 7 days a week, you know, like 4 days a week of 60 minutes of high intensity. That's what's going to create that, you know, increase of VO2 max, going to create that change, going to, you know, question that homeostasis and make it better. It's just cool to see that, a little off topic, what like we're being a part of that change into the new,
An actual scientific
yeah,
community change.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool you say that because there's still a lot of people that want to write off CrossFit and say bad things, but then you look at how they're programming and their training, and you go, well, you can talk your shit, but you have learned a lot from what's come outside of it. And then they'll never admit that they're doing CrossFit, but they're taking all the principles and methodologies and applying them, even though I don't think they fully understand why they're applying them.
Yep.
But I think good science in general, right? We have to go back and look at things and look at things and look at things. And you know, they didn't know what they didn't even know. They thought it was impossible to run a 5-minute mile and squat 400 pounds. And obviously now we know that is human, stuff like that. I think when you look at this article, to be honest point, it goes right hand in hand with the other one. If it doesn't kill you, you know, it won't make you stronger. I said that wrong. It doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. That you have to stress yourself out, right? To Jose's point, for most of us getting up and just going for a walk, we're not going to get cardiovascularly stressed out to improve our VO2 max. But, you know, I had a guy that got in my car the other day that when he got in my car, it sounded like he just ran a max effort 400-meter sprint. To him, that was extremely intense. And that was just walking 10 feet to get in a car. So this article even does bring up like beginners, I think to Elisa's point that we're kind of right, you know, science and what's thought is I think they probably took a bunch of people that were very new to getting exposed and they gave them, you know, 40 minutes of just a very slow effort and they showed them through the VO2 max and go, cool, that it works. That's what you have to do to improve the VO2 max. And what they didn't realize is eventually those people were going to baseline and plateau it and never improve their VO2 max after that. So it's a really good example of those like beginner gains inside the gym. Like I remember my first year of CrossFit, I thought I was going to snatch 400 in like 2 years. I'm like, at the rate I'm PRing, I don't understand why people have so much issues with this. It's going to be so easy. And then one day I just kind of stopped PRing, you know? So those beginner gains are real. My body was just not used to any of those exposures. So my resilience, that recovery building phase was through the roof. My overarching thought going through this article, besides the fact that you have to stress out what you're trying to get better at, is if you look at the chart that was written for it, and it had, you know, like it had a recovery, it had a long workout, it had a tempo, which was long, but like multiple intervals, or like versus the 60 minutes training, it was like 20 minutes, but a little faster. It had the interval training, which was 5 minutes or less, and then it had like the full blown interval that was 30 to 90 seconds. If you look at that, and I think leaving the article, you're like, I got to get my VO2 maxed up. That shouldn't be the sole takeaway. it should be going back to what is CrossFit. CrossFit's constantly varied functional movement at high intensity. So the high intensity for the long workout, the intensity is the length that it's happening, right? The high intensity for that really short interval is the speed that it's going to be happening. Our job as CrossFitters is to be all of the above. So looking at this article, it's a really actually good example of why our programming needs to be so diverse. I'm a great example of it. You can give me a couple intervals with the proper rest, and I'll look like I'm the fittest person in the world. You give me a tempo thing, like that tempo run I talked about for 20 minutes, and the wheels fall off the bus after 3 minutes, right? So it goes to show, like, true CrossFitter, big hole there, not good at everything. So I think it shows the variance in the programming that we need. And then I think it's also just a really good roadmap for how are we going to address the different needs when it comes to like the energy systems, and make sure that we don't end up someone like me that has avoided the 5K run day at the gym and I just, did my own workout instead type stuff. Does that make sense?
I have some questions on the interval pieces, and so I thought actually before kind of getting into this realm of kind of like VO2 max being at that 4.444, I thought like I can achieve higher VO2 max with doing intervals of like being on the assault bike for 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off, 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off, and keep building it up to maybe like 30 on, 30 off. And that was going to get me there. And now I'm wondering, I'm not sure of like where I got the information from, but like, is that even something?
That's
I mean, I guess it
that would
applies to
be
some things we do at CrossFit, but I'd be better off doing the VO2 max protocol.
so they're not necessarily totally. There's a lot of overlap in a lot of this stuff. I'm gonna quickly go through like the different, like how the different time frames are gonna get hit with intensities, and then I'm gonna like circle back to what you're saying exactly. So the long, and like we have to be saying this is a fairly fit person. This is not a person that's getting off the couch, because the person getting off the couch is just going to get hammered in all these, and all of them are going to be effective in more ways than this one. So the really, really long, very, very slow recovery, it says 20 to 60 minutes. Basically, I put 2 slow for gains. Like you're literally moving to mobilize joints and to get blood flow. Then we have this long workout, and it's 60 to 120 minutes. So we're talking an hour to 2 hours. So that's like the person that gets on the bike and is biking 40 miles, or goes on a run and they're running, a 10-mile training for a marathon type thing. The way you look at that is just that's going to be the stamina. Like how long is your heart able to deliver oxygen, and how well is your body able to use that oxygen and your fat as energy? It gets also better at doing both of those when you're training. Then you had your tempo, which was, it had listed as like a 20-minute range. Because it's not an hour or 2 hours and it's 20 minutes, it allows you to go a little bit faster. So it's still very, I'm okay, it's still very focused on oxygen and fat, but with a hair of speed. So like if you're training for like a race day, tempo run would be good, because you're not training at that low sustained, I can do it forever type pace. With the tempo runs, you're tapping into carbohydrates now. You don't hit your lactic threshold because it's so aerobic that the oxygen helps clear the use of those carbohydrates when the lactate starts to build. It's not fast enough that it's going to build so quick that it makes you stop. Does that make sense? And then there's 2 different intervals. One of them's maximum of 5 minutes. That fits into the protocol you were talking about. That one starts to tap into everything. It starts to tap into the aerobic and aerobic glycogen. So you're still using oxygen, but you're using a lot of carbohydrates. And toward the end of them, you're starting to approach that like lactic threshold. Like you're getting close, but you stop before you get there. You rest, you recover, and then you're able to do it again. That one is going to tap VO2, but because it's not going to be an all, depending on the time, an all out go, you're not going to like hit the ceiling. You're going to get close to the ceiling, but like kind of come down in the rest. And then I'm going to come back to that one. And then the last one is like the 30 to 69, 90 seconds. That's going to be the all out goes, right? There's no pacing, 100% effort. Go as hard as you can. You stop that effort. You're super gassed. Everything kind of hurts. You've hit your lactic threshold. So if it wasn't breathing that was going to stop you, your muscles are on fire and you're going to have to stop. That's like your assault bike, right? You are going to tap your VO2. It's a different touches your VO2. It'd be like doing a 1 rep max squat versus doing squats at 85%. Are both of them going to get you stronger? Yes. One of them just may get you stronger faster because it's closer to failure. And this is me like theorizing a little bit. I haven't watched what you were talking about, Justin. For the one that was the 4 minutes on and then with the rest, and it was close to a 1-to-1 rest ratio. That one they're probably saying is the most effective way to do it because it's the most umbrellaed over the other systems. Versus when I go very, very fast, very, very short, I'm really only hitting that anabolic anaerobic system, right? Versus when I do the interval that's a little longer, I'm getting a little bit of that system and a little bit of the aerobic system. Does that make sense why I'm saying it's more umbrellaed? And if we're just talking like if I can do only one for the rest of my life, what would have the most value? It would be that. From saying that, unfortunately, we don't have to do one and only one. But when you say like that one's going to have the most value, that one and that type of workout would be like the majority of workouts. And then on the ends, you're going to have that very short or that very short interval with a lot of rest and that very long. So if you just look at also just CrossFit programming and we look at a month of programming, the majority of them are going to be 5 to 15 minutes. And then you're going to have a handful that are under 5 minutes or very sprinty short interval. And then you're going to have a handful that are long that we're going over 20 and we're working out for most of the class. That's why you see it structured like that. There's still value in doing both of those. You still need both of those. But it also depends too on like what's your goal? Like where is each athlete lacking? Like if I have somebody that like me, the longer stuff kills me. The longer stuff is going to give me more bang for my buck than the shorter stuff because the longer stuff's going to enable me to get better also at the shorter stuff because I have more stamina and I have more localized endurance. So when you look at all this, it's all intertwined and it's all intermeshed in the way we're working. We can't just get one-sided on anything. Does that make sense? Does that kind of answer your question too?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Perfect.
It's a really good example of the high rocks that's going down right now, and like not shitting on it. Happy people are working out and exercising, but if you take those athletes and they're only doing those styles of workouts, and those workouts are all I'm not as in depth with it as some people are, but let's say all those workouts are over 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and they're these long runs and long rows, and they're doing one quick functional exercise and functional movement. Then when you look at that and you go from an energy system point of view, they're hitting this one over and over and over. I give that person now the classic CrossFit workout that's going to be 8 minutes and they need to have another gear. They're not necessarily as trained in that gear as someone that's a little more balanced, right? The girl who just won 24.3, I believe she's like coming out and saying she's a high rocks. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens at quarterfinals. I don't think so much, but semifinals in the games. If she comes out and places top 10 in the games, I'll retract my statement. But I don't think it's going to happen.
She's going to scale the heavy barbells.
Something's probably going to get her. And I would say it's not just from the skills point of view. She looks very skilled in my eyes. She was a question I saw on Instagram, but I thought they were fine. But I think it's going to be more of like an energy system thing that'll eventually. I think she'll crush let's say she makes it to the games, I think she will crush the long events. Whatever long events they get, I guarantee she's gonna be top 10. It's gonna be those like real explosive short, like when they did the 400-meter runs and max split jerks on the clock. That's gonna be not fun. That's a totally different workout. Maybe she's training a lot more CrossFit. She's just doing that because of the sponsorship. Who knows? But if it's solely something like that, there's gonna be a hole. Any questions on that?
Yeah, so going back to what I showed you a few days ago with the energy systems and like that workout that it was heavy deadlifts and I don't know what it was.
I have it. I'm gonna airdrop it to myself so I can put it on the screen.
Yeah, so it was deadlifts and rowing.
All right, so this is what he's talking about. Keep going with your context. Your question, I don't remember exactly. Your question was about like what energy systems are being used.
Yeah, because the way they explain it on this article, it's more I don't see it as like the workout as a whole. It's more of like
Each individual movement.
and moving from one movement to the other.
So we for a little more context, we had this conversation and this kind of breaks down like what's happening inside of the workout. Like the row is going to get a little bit glycolytic because of the distance potentially, and then the deadlifts are so heavy that it's not going to be ripping deadlifts like at one speed. Deadlifts are going to end up taking longer on these bigger sets than like a 90-second range. So because they're taking longer, the workout starts to get a little more aerobic. And I looked at the workout from a whole, and this necessarily looks at it from like an individual standpoint. And my statement to D was this workout's primarily glycolytic. And the reason I said that was over time, the longer you go, it starts to shift from using the carbs into more oxygen and fat, right? And there's this teeter that happens, but there's also this overlap that's happening while that's happening as well. And like, according to this, it sounds like I'm wrong, but from breaking down and reading through these two articles, I think I was right, but I was just also missing a piece of the puzzle that it's never just glycolytic or aerobic. It's always going to be a blend of them. Does that make sense? So because the row is a non-stop moving thing, it has the potential to get glycolytic and like a little bit of like hitting that lactic threshold, right? So it's like an anaerobic glycolytic. And then when you get to the deadlifts in this, because they're heavy, and I'm going to do maybe a small set, I'm going to drop it, I'm going to have to rest, I'm not going to be able to pick it up again because I'm going to fail. Because of that rest, it turns into more of like that glycolytic aerobic, and I have this like regeneration that happens a little bit because of the breathing, and my heart rate's not going to be as high because of the rest periods. Does that make sense now, D?
I thought that would be the opposite. I thought the deadlifts would make it more anaerobic.
It would be more anaerobic if it wasn't 355 pounds. Which, for some people of this world, they maybe should be able to pick that bar up and go 21 or a quick 11-10, and it is going to be anaerobic. But like in the context that this like article's talking about, it's kind of looking at it from the sense that we're probably going to do a set of 3, drop the bar, rest. A minute or two are going to go by. 3, drop the bar, rest. That this load isn't a fast moving Metcon. It's going to be a very slow moving Metcon because they're intentionally trying to make it almost like a strength. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I thought that to me is anaerobic. That you're doing sets of 3 versus knocking out 15 or 10. We're going for a longer period of time and not as heavy. Am I confusing it?
Yeah, you're flipping it. Anaerobic would be a shorter period of time. Don't look at it from load right now. Look at it from like what your heart rate's doing kind of thing. That's, I think, the easiest way.
Right, because if you have 21 reps and you're only doing 3 at a time, you technically have not finished it. So
So
your heart
your
rate,
20, does it say in here how long? 21
Um,
reps is going to be 75 to 100 seconds of effort. Hold on.
yeah.
Right, I'm reading that right.
Yeah. It's approximately 75 to 100. That's if like you're fit.
I always think of like under 2 minutes
So
is anaerobic,
Justin,
over is like
I
aerobic.
see your point. I didn't read that last paragraph. Yeah, it's like it's 100 seconds. I think actual level 1 has it up to 90 seconds. So like you're going 10 seconds over that. I don't think 10 seconds over that prompts someone to say it's aerobic. I have a
But-
slight issue and would honestly want to get into more of a conversation, get it explained by whoever wrote this, because I still think this is slightly off.
But like, isn't it 2 minutes though? It's not a minute and a half. 2 minutes.
I gotta pull up level 1. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, yes, it's 10 seconds, up to 10 seconds would be
Phosphor creatine.
oxygen, Then from up to 2 minutes would be the glycolytic, and then more than 2 minutes would be the aerobic. It's 120 seconds, which would be 2 minutes.
So, like, if you say that out loud and you read this again, it kind of contradicts itself. Does that make sense?
Because then it's not going over 2 minutes to be.
Because we're not over 2
Okay.
minutes, and I think it all, but I don't know if it contradicts itself, because when we say, have we been working out longer than 2 minutes now? The answer is yes, because we just did a row and now we're deadlifting. That's why when we first had this conversation, I had the statement of the length of the workout is going to matter. And then this like focused so much in on like only the deadlifts. I felt like it was a little like misleading. So I think, Justin, you are right, but it's because you have to look at the totality of what's happening in this workout too. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because if
and
you
how
say,
I
if this
view it is
person, real quick,
Okay.
and then I'll let you go. If
All
this
right,
person's
so-
starting this workout out and they go 21 reps, and they're doing their 21 reps in 75 to 100 seconds, even though it's heavy and even though they're going to be breaking, to me, they're working at a glycolytic rate there. And then maybe after that first row or during that first row, then it's going to slow down and it's going to become a little more aerobic because the totality of the workout is longer than 2 minutes. But then in the same token, it's not just aerobic. You're still burning carbohydrates, so it's still glycolytic. It's just that blended layover that is happening.
So then you're keeping that rest in mind as well. Like this is taking in
Even with the rest in mind.
consideration that you're resting.
Yeah, because you're not like, it's not like you're saying I'm going to do a deadlift and take a 3-minute rest. Like you're going to end up picking that barbell up before like total recovery too. Like even though it's going to slow down. And because it's over 2 minutes, like Justin was saying, once it gets over that 2-minute mark, aerobic is going to come into play.
Yeah.
But it's a blend of aerobic and glycolytic. But it's not like if you say just this 21 set of deadlifts here, and they do it in 75 to 100 seconds, that's under 2 minutes. It's a glycolytic only effort. That's a glycolytic anaerobic effort.
Yeah.
You get where I'm going with that? Once I pass that 2-minute mark, I'm not solely glycolytic. I'm going to be blending glycolytic and aerobic.
Yeah.
Okay, are we on the same page now?
Yes. I guess I was just confused when you were talking about it as a whole. Because then I'm thinking like this workout isn't going to take you 2 minutes. It's going to be like, it's going to go into the
10-minute workout.
Right. So automatically I was thinking, okay, then if it's that, it goes into the aerobic. Like you go through glycolytic, but then you go.
Yes, but I think
aerobic.
100% correct. But I just think and maybe this is me just being hard-headed a little bit, it's a little misleading because there is overlap.
Yeah,
Like
I get that.
it's going to be primarily aerobic maybe, but glycolytic is still happening. Like we're still
Right.
burning carbohydrates.
Absolutely.
Okay. Justin, what were you going to say? Unless I said it.
I just don't know how these systems work enough to be definitive, but I was kind of thinking of in line with what you're saying is that first 10 seconds, phosphate. Then we get into probably at this point, somewhere in the first 21, like maybe halfway through the 21 reps. And we're now getting into transitioning, eventually get into the aerobic. But then I'm wondering, let's say we get off the rower. We're already in the aerobic stage. We get off the rower. The heart rate comes down. Maybe we take a 5-second rest. At what point is it like now the anaerobic's taking over and the aerobic shuts down? Is there like a lever kind of thing that's happening, or is it just more like I just don't know how the systems work like that?
I don't know that it's like a lever that it's just gonna flip. I would say imagine maybe the best way to think about it is like a hybrid car. Like at times it's using gas, at times it's using engine, and at times it's using like both to make that car move forward. Like your body's going to be burning carbohydrates and it's glycolytic, but then it's at the same time it's also using oxygen, and that oxygen physiological effect by burning oxygen also for fuel, it's clearing lactate. So it's this spider web, this intertwined web of everything that's happening together, not just one
Going back
thing.
and forth.
Blended. It's a latte.
God, that's just so hard to like.
Yeah, that's too much. You don't need to know how the substrate because they are like limited. They're limited by then how the substrate they have. But the phosphocreatine takes a while to recover.
That's
So
the one
it's
you're never
deep.
getting back until
Yeah.
you stop. The other ones are working simultaneously. And it's like a percentage system as well. The longer I go, I'm depleting my glycogen stores and I'm using more oxygen and fat. So if I'm at the 35-minute mark, I'm probably primarily only using oxygen and fat, and I'm either getting low on carbs or not really using them at all. A really good example is if you do Murph, when you do Murph and you're finishing Murph, could you go on a 400-meter sprint and be very effective?
God no.
No, there's nothing left. That energy system's already depleted down. And that's like your glycolytic. Because a 400-meter sprint would be somewhere between that 60-second to hopefully faster than 2-minute. I wouldn't call it 2-minute a 400-meter sprint. I'm gonna make a picture for you, or I'm gonna find it, and it'll make more sense. I think it's percentage course.
I just really hope that it's whatever
It's
question comes in.
No,
L3,
no, I don't think Cross is gonna get into like, hey, is this gonna be
what Jose just said.
phosphocreatine or is this glycolytic? Like they're not in that much detail, but like I like the way that you say it, Nate, that it's blended because you're starting to use, you know, it's like a gas tank, right? So you keep breathing. Oxygen is, you get oxygen all the time, right? But you get your carbs from what you eat. So once that gas tank empties, you still have the
You're
oxygen.
not eating more carbs.
Correct.
And I think to Jose's point, what he said is you don't need to get, we're CrossFit coaches, right? We're not scientists. We don't need to get so deep in depth that we need to understand it on like too deep of a level. We need to understand it at a superficial level so we can be effective in, you know, creating workouts and understand of the differences. You know, it's a really good example of the fact that your aerobic, your oxygen, aerobic system, and your glycolytic systems working together at all times. Do a 2-minute bike, or do a 1:50, a 90-second bike sprint and hold your breath. Can you do it? No, you need oxygen, but you're also in that state, you're primarily glycolytic. So if we were like an on and off switch, we wouldn't have to breathe sometimes. But that's impossible. We know we have to, right? There's a chart that will help. It's like a 60-minute time chart, and it's just like the start of the chart that, you know, level 1 has, where it's, you know, phosphagen is like up and down 10 seconds, And glycolytic is like a little bit of a bigger bump, and then it dies in 2 minutes, and then aerobics
That's
just
in
like straight
our,
across
that's
the
in our
bottom.
L1, isn't it? That's in our L1.
Yeah, that's in What is Fitness, I think.
Yeah.
There's a chart that's a little more expanded, that gets a little more into detail, and it's through minutes. So it's like minute 1 through minute, I think it goes up to like 30 or 40. And it's just basically expanded, and you see how glycolytic has this big bump, but then it doesn't just crash like phosphocreatine does. It kind of just slowly depletes, and then eventually it has an overchange of aerobic, and aerobic becomes higher than it, and that would be like when those glycogen stores are now depleted fully. And it's around like 20-minute mark is where it crosses over and becomes only aerobic. And I think when you look at CrossFit workouts, that's like a big reason that you don't always need to go past the 20-minute, because we're working aerobic and we're working our glycolytic together past 2 minutes, even though one's starting to fall. This is probably far too late, but don't overthink it.
Your blending made it the difference in my mind. That worked for
It's
me.
okay to blend. And it's also like when we go back to the VO2 max, I think that's backwards for you guys. Can you see that? It's a relationship. If this stamina base, it's like a mountain. If this base isn't wide enough and we don't have any kind of stamina, we're not going to be able to get this peak of VO2 higher, and vice versa. If I want this base to grow, I need this peak VO2 max to grow. So we need at the same time to be working both of them, even if we're solely focused on stamina or VO2 max. We still need to tap into the other one occasionally, even if we're like sport specific. Does that make sense? CrossFitters were not sport specific, so we need to get both all the time. Unless you guys have any other questions, statements, we can call it a day at that.
Good.
Yeah, cool. From a programming point of view, it just goes back to varying and being constantly varied and making sure that we are. Cool. We'll call today a day. Jose and Dee last week, Justin and Elise were just talking about kind of like putting a bow on programming and then taking that into how it's going to affect like other populations and like also into nutrition. So we'll slowly start to transition into that and put a focus on those things, especially because we just talked about recovery being the #1 factor.
Okay.
But then I'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Cool. Thank you.
See y'all. You're welcome.
Bye.